work that way. So I don't think we need to be concerned about that. I think we need to take appropriate steps to have an ordinance that's going to have some impact. So if we really are looking at one that's instituted at the level of 10, but when we look at back retrospectively and we find it would have done nothing, then what are we doing? That's my concern. I want to see that we are taking steps that actually are going to create some kind of change, or we're just doing a pro forma action to satisfy a state requirement. And I don't think that gets us anywhere. I don't think it's good public policy. So that's why I want to see that information to see, would we really have done anything if this policy had been in place as written for the last 2 years? Thank you.
We will definitely bring that information back. I will say that in our discussions, there have been, dueling data, research, whatever, regarding the efficacy or non-efficacy of inclusionary housing ordinances. And at a certain point, we decided we just needed to move past that and to continue on down the road of trying to make this happen. I will say that based on our experience over the last couple of years, when you look at the various tools for creating affordable housing, as applied in Mendocino County, and maybe this is a controversial thing to say, but I don't see an inclusionary housing ordinance as being a major tool in creating affordable housing in this county. I think that it should be there in the toolbox, as the saying goes, but that we probably, given the nature of development in this county, we need to be looking at more, I would say, direct subsidies and use of federal and state funds to actually create affordable projects. And we really want to focus our staff time on those and making those things happen.
Supervisor Delmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm willing to bet that for every one speaker that says these things work well, there's two that will say that they don't. I think a lot of it goes back to the comments you just made, Ms. Glassy. The key point that my colleague made was integrated into the cost of doing business. So it doesn't necessarily stifle construction. It's integrated in the cost of doing business. I think that was a quote. It makes no sense to me whatsoever to add at this point, the 10% of the median is around 30 grand. 30 grand to the price of a house in the theory of making it more affordable. So we just took a segment of society and said, you used to be able to afford this house. Now we're going to knock you down to the side where you need to get the incentive to go into the house because you can't afford it anymore. Completely illogical. So starting down at 1 is absolutely ludicrous. It makes no sense whatsoever. That said, I need an explanation on page 4, letter E. Development of the county's remaining developable residential land without the ability to permit and construct housing at a reasonable density and a price affordable to persons of all income levels does not support county's housing policies. Can you explain that to me? 'Cause I've read it 4 or 5 times, and I'm not exactly sure what you're trying to say there.
It's not, doesn't trip off the tongue, but basically what it's saying is, in the absence of having an inclusionary housing ordinance and attempts to make more affordable housing, if you let all your development be simply market rate, then you're taking up land and, available capital, investment, whatever, and you're getting market rate housing, but you're reducing the opportunities for affordable housing.
So the laws of supply and demand aren't a factor here?
I think that there's a demand. I think part of it is trying to deal with the realities of investment and return on investment, and obviously you get a bigger return on investment when you invest in something that people pay more for, but I guess if you do supply and demand, then that's a smaller number of houses, and it doesn't necessarily meet the needs of all the people here.
Well, I can give you 2 examples that counter that. One is the mobile home park or proposed mobile home park in Laytonville, and the challenges that applicant has gone through just to try to get a permit. It's been huge, and Supervisor Pinches can attest to that. Another one was here in Ukiah Valley, in the unincorporated area where the landowner said, I want to develop affordable housing. But the problems and the hassles that individual went through, he said, forget it. So I think there's incentives are there. We have a process that's not amicable to getting through. So I really weigh more heavily on the supply and demand if we can help get that thing through and not stifle it everywhere. Because when somebody wants to come in and develop a housing or housing project, no matter what level, and they beat their head against the wall down the hall over here, that's not helping anything. The inclusionary housing unit requirement, why the escalation? Why not a flat percent?
I think the concept there is that the larger the development, that the larger the overall investment, and therefore, it's kind of the, words are escaping me right now, but the idea that, kind of bulk purchasing, that the larger, economies of scale, that was it, that once you have a larger development, it would be easier to provide a larger percentage of affordable housing because of the overall economies of the project.
So if my calculations are correct, and using the $30,000 figure as 10% of the median is a round number, somebody coming in and doing 76 units, and those could be 76 market rate units of any size. In this case, say they're small, two-bedroom, 1,500 square foot townhouses. My calculations would be that they would write a check, potentially, for $570,000. Am I not calculating that correctly?
Yeah,